Hello and welcome to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Michael Austin, a reporter here at the Western Journal, and today is a very special episode because we're joined by none other than Michael Jr.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me, other Michael.
Yeah, I guess this is just kind of the Michael episode. We got the two Michaels on today. And
We're not related.
No, we're not related. In case you couldn't tell, we're not related at all.
Yeah.
So Michael's
Could be.
Could be?
Could be.
Yeah.
Does your dad travel at all?
A little bit, yeah, for work, yeah.
Yeah, there's that chance right there.
Well, there we go. And I'm adopted, so, who knows?
Wow. So, yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
So, what could be? We're conjoined twins.
Yeah.
We just met, though.
Yeah. And if you couldn't tell, Michael, he's a Christian comedian.
Well, how would they tell if I'm a Christian, though? The comedian part, that's probably obvious, but they're not going to.
Well, they could just tell you're such a nice guy.
Tell you're a Christian.
You kind of got that aura about you,
Oh.
Yeah, not that kind of, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll put some deodorant on next time.
But yeah, so, for those who might not be familiar with who you are, can you just kind of run through your career a little bit and what you're up to now?
I am the Black Michael on this podcast. My career, my whole career.
Yeah.
So I started my career doing stand-up comedy. Now I have been referred to as a comedic thought leader, which is pretty cool. I don't know exactly what it means. I have to put some thought on it first before I can figure out what it means and lead in that way. But I've been able to do some really cool late-night television shows and just wrote a book and did some movies and some really cool stuff is cracking, man. So I'm really, really excited about how God is using me, and then what he wants to do next is some really cool stuff, man. So
yeah, and it's professional comedian's quite a career. How did you kind of get started on that track?
Oh yeah, I'm not professional. I work at Walmart on Tuesday nights on the corner of. I'm just playing. Yeah. No. It's. I think my career really started at a movie theater. I was at the movies in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I grew up at, and I'm like 17, 18 years old. And all my friends are graduating high school, and I'm graduating high school, and everybody's excited. They're talking about what they're going to do. One guy had his full ride scholarship. This other guy was going to the Navy. They're like, Michael Jr., what are you doing after school? I was like, I'm going to go make me a sandwich. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But we went to the movies, and we're sitting here watching this movie, and in the middle of the movie, the screen goes blank. And this dude, one of my friends, a German exchange student, says to me, I dare you go tell a joke. That's the best German I got, people, if you're listening right now. He said, I dare you go tell a joke. So I went up there and I told this joke. And the only joke I knew at the time was a dirty joke because I wasn't a comedian. Right. So I had to rewrite this joke in my head because I had a friend there who we made a deal that we wouldn't curse, use bad language, because if we did, he could hit me in the chest. It's a long story. Anyway, so I go up there and I rewrite this joke, and I told this joke, and all of these moviegoers laugh, and it was really a pretty awesome experience. I felt like a high for the first time ever in my life. I've never done drugs or never had alcohol before. I had NyQuil once. Have you had that stuff?
Yeah.
It is bananas.
It can get dangerous,
out. Anyway, so I decided, so I do this joke, and all these people laugh, and then they want more comedy, but I know when to get out. Even then, my first time ever on stage, I knew it was time to go. So I went and sat down, and then this security comes running down looking for me to kick me out. They're like, hey, and they're looking for me, and this white lady, who I don't even know, stands up and says, if you kick that young man out, I want my money back. And then these bikers with long hair and tattoos and these black people, the whole room stood up and came to my defense. And it was such a powerful moment. All I did was give them a little part of me, and then they all came to my defense in a significant way. And I used to look at that moment and say, that was God giving me a glimpse of what he called me to do, as in to make people laugh. But the truth is, it was him giving me a glimpse, but it wasn't just about laughter. It was about bringing people together for something bigger than themselves. That's really what I'm called to do even now. I am called to comedically inspire people to walk in purpose. That's what I get to do with my life.
Yeah, and so that is really the special part of your comedy, is how you infuse your faith and your journey with Christ, and how you encourage others to follow that journey too. And so the other big part of this is, how did you become a follower of Christ? When did you kind of accept Jesus?
Oh, it's the
as your Lord and
same as
Savior?
for black people. You just believe in your heart and confess with your mouth. It's the same.
Oh, yeah.
Rules. Yeah. I'm just playing with you. Yeah. So what happened was, I was living in New York City. I'm doing comedy, and I enjoy, Like I went to New York really to see if I was funny. Because in New York, if you're not funny, the way they let you know is they'll say something like, "You're not funny."
Yeah.
So I moved to New York City, and I wanted to get my comedy career on, and I'm performing. There's a comedy club there called the Comic Strip Live. It is a really hard club to get into for a new comedian. So I'm getting ready. It's finally, just to give you a feel for it, they have an open mic night on Tuesday nights at the time. It started at 7 p.m. Well, comedians who are new in town would get in line at 6:30 in the morning to do 3 minutes of comedy at 7 p.m. Really hard to get in this club. Yeah. So it's finally my turn to perform. And right before I get on stage, this comedian named George Wallace walks in. Now, George Wallace is a very established comedian, not the governor, who's no longer alive. Yeah. I just want to point that out.
Okay.
Sure anyway, so he says, so he comes in, and whenever someone like that comes in, whoever's next gets bumped. I'm next. I know I'm about to get bumped. They're not going to let me perform. But the manager's walking over to me, and I'm all up. I'm like, oh no, this is going to be all bad. And I'm not a Christian at this time either.
Right.
But this is really where God shows up for the first time in my life, or I should say, this is where I noticed him. So the manager walks over to me and he says, "Michael Jr., listen, George Wallace is here. Would you like to go on before him or after him?" That never happens. It never happens. You never get an option. So I was like, "Before him, please." And I go on stage and I do my comedy set, and he comes in and he's laughing as well. And then after the show, there's a bunch of comedians around him, all asking him questions. He leaves them and he walks over to me. And he says, "You know what? You're funny and you're clean." Because at this point in my career, I don't curse. I never cursed in my comedy career. And I don't know anything about Jesus at the point. Yeah. And he said to me, "Why don't you curse?" And I was like, "I don't know, if my grandmother walk in or something. I don't want my..." First of all, my grandmother is not coming to New York or to a comedy club. Let me just throw that out there. She had church because it lasts 16 hours a day. Yeah. So he laughed and he said, "You know what, that's funny. I'd like for you to do a show with me and my best friend in a couple nights." I didn't know who his best friend was. It didn't matter. I'm excited. I get to the show. It's me, George Wallace, Jerry Seinfeld. I'm pumped.
Oh, man.
I'm excited. Yeah. I did 2 shows that night and got 2 standing ovations. And I get into detail about this in the book that they strategically put right behind me right here. That's product placement right there, people. That's the book. Anyway, it's called Funny How Life Works. So I get on stage, have a great time, and I do 2 shows with Jerry Seinfeld and George Wallace, and I got 2 standing ovations. And I ripped. I'm the man. I'm like, yeah. After the show, the club manager says to me, "Hey, Mike, we got a great set. Would you like to go to church with me tomorrow?" I was like, "Church? Why are you messing this up right now, dude? I just got 2 standing ovations. Ain't nobody going to church." Because I went to church when I was a kid, and that stuff was miserable. The dude on stage yelling. He mad. He got phlegm in his throat. He trying to get out. The Lord said, I was like, this is miserable. So I was like, no, I'm not going to go. And then 20 minutes later, his fiance, who was beautiful, she asked me the same question. And I didn't even know pretty people went to church. I got to be real with you. Because there wasn't any at my grandmother's church. So they're like, and then, so this lady, she says to me, she says, "Michael Jr., she had this accent too. She was like, "Would you like to go to church with us?" Yeah. And I was like, I was just looking for a church the other day, man. I don't know. I was just looking for one. And then, so I go to this church, and I can't even find these people who invited me. And then I'm at this church, and it's the Christian Culture Center in Brooklyn, New York. This dude is up on stage, and he's talking about Jesus. That's it. He's just talking. He's not yelling. He ain't screaming. He don't got no perm. Dude is just talking about Jesus. Then he did this thing where he did like an altar call. And he said, if you want Jesus in your life, all you have to do is believe in your heart, confess with your mouth, and Jesus is yours. And I really wanted to do it too. Like I really, really wanted to. But I was like, nah, man, I got to read the pamphlet first, man. I don't know what this is about. This could be some weird little, I don't know what this is. Because I knew some Christians, and they was creepy. Yeah. There's some creepy Christians out there. Yeah. If you listen to this podcast right now and you don't know any creepy Christians, it's you. Yeah. Your friends know one. Yeah. So I told myself I said, no, I got to read the pamphlet first. So I told myself I'd read the Bible before I became a Christian. I didn't even have a Bible. A few days later, I'm at O'Hare Airport, and this lady just hands me her Bible. You don't understand. We never exchanged words. Yeah. She just handed me her Bible. And then walked off like the Lone Ranger or somebody, or whatever example I should use for this demographic of this show. So she walks off, and I got this Bible, and I'm like, okay, well, I said I was going to read it. I started reading the Bible. First thing I read was the copyrights, the very first page. The Bible was made in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Me too. I'm tripping. Why come we never met before? This is crazy. So I started reading the Bible, and I'm going to church. Reading the Bible, going to church. And I got to the part about the job. I'm like, no wonder I don't want one of them. That stuff is crazy, man. That's why, I mean, I know you got a job, but anyway. So I'm reading the Bible. I'm going to church. And I remember, and I'm putting in like 12 to 14 hours a day reading the Bible now because I really want to give my life over to Jesus, but I told myself I'd read the Bible first. And you don't have to do this. If you're listening, you're like, oh, man, that's what I got to do first. You don't. I just wanted to. I wanted to stick to what I said. So I got to the part in Matthew where it said Jesus died for me. Yo, White Michael. I didn't even know, for real. I didn't know that Jesus died for me. Literally, I didn't know that he died for me until I was 27 years old. Yeah. And I read it right there in the Bible. Like, I didn't know. Right there in Matthew, he died. I was like, I had no idea. I've been to church, people, but nobody was teaching like that. So I read it in Matthew that he died for me, and I'm tripping. Then I turn to Mark, and he died again. I'm like, what is going on? What? Luke and John, why they keep killing him? I get to John, I'm like, why are you going back in the garden, Jesus? Like, for real, I wish I wrote that as a joke, but it's actually the truth. I actually thought Jesus died 4 times.
Yeah.
So I remember finishing up the Bible, and I went to the church. It took me 36 days to read the Bible. I remember finishing up the Bible, and I went to church I gave my life to Jesus, ran up to the altar, like, during the announcements. I didn't want to wait till the end. I'm like, I know how y'all normally do this, but is Jesus here right now? I'm ready to do this. And now I understand some stuff. I used to just think I was funny. I just happened to be funny, but now I understand I'm funny for a reason. Like, there's purpose behind me having this sense of humor. And even some of the setbacks I have, God is using all of that so I can do what he's called me to do, which is to comedically inspire people to walk in purpose.
Yeah, and that transformation, it's funny how, when you give your life to Christ, it just starts to totally change everything.
It's funny how life works.
Yeah, funny how life works. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just right up here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Man, why do my hand go backwards? It's funny how life works.
Yeah.
Man, my finger is weird. People think something's wrong with me right now. Anyway.
But yeah, how did that start to like change your comedy, and how did you get from where you were to where you are now, where it's just, there's all kinds of gospel messages and all that in your comedy?
Yeah, so my comedy is it hasn't really changed much. Like, God was working on me even before I became a Christian. Like, the fact that I didn't curse and I'm doing all of these clubs and like everybody in front of me on stage and behind me on stage is using all sort of 4-letter words. But so I have kids, and I told my kids at a very young age, anything that I ever say on stage, you can repeat it. Any movie that I'm ever in, you can act it out in your life. Like, that started out as the accountability. Then when I met Jesus, it just made so much sense. And I never, like, I was speaking this weekend at a big church doing the weekend services, but I try to only say what I feel like God wants me to say in that moment. And sometimes it may be an altar call, or sometimes it just may be a word of encouragement. I really believe that, so when I'm on stage, here's what's happening.
Yeah.
I may be presenting joke number 1. If you ever come see me live, you'll see me on stage, and this process is happening. I'm presenting joke number 1. But at the same time, I'm doing the math on what I think joke number 2 should be based off how you're currently responding to joke number 1. Then I'll start to do the math on what I think joke number 3 should be based off how you're currently responding to joke number 1, and probably will respond to joke number 2. Then I'll move on to joke number 4. I actually used to go 7 jokes deep. I would be thinking about the 7th joke, even though I'm presenting the first joke. But then I met Jesus, and that changed because he wanted to talk while I'm on stage. So I can't go 7 jokes deep. And he changed my question. The question I used to ask was, how can I get laughs from people?
Right.
But God changed my question to, what can I give to my audience? And when you ask that question, a lot of times the answer is another joke, but sometimes it's something a little more, because the audience may need something, whether they realize it or not. And that's when a message might come in about how awesome Jesus is, or a random comment to somebody. In the book, I think it's chapter 24, I was in Sacramento, and the short version, the non-detailed version of this story is I'm on stage, and I'm listening between the gaps, and I'm asking a question, what should I give? By the way, listeners, in your life, no matter what you do, there's gaps. My question to you is, what are you asking in between the gaps? Are you asking, what can I give? Or are you asking, what can I get? And if you don't know the answer to that question, I think you know the answer to that question. You're asking, what can I get, by default? So you have to articulate what it is you want to ask. So I'm in Sacramento. I'm doing the comedy. We're laughing. There's like 3,000 people there. We're having a fun time. And then I'm listening between the gaps, and I said something that I mentioned in the book as well about how life works. There's a setup and there's a punchline. Your setup is what you receive. Your punchline is about what you're called to deliver.
Yeah.
And I said, there's probably some people out here right now, you have something amazing to deliver, but you got to make a hard choice first. And it's okay. If God is telling you to make this hard choice and do this thing, you got this. He got your back. You can do it. Well, after the show, I do an autograph line, and I'm in the green room, and security comes walking up to me, and they're like, hey, there's this guy who really wants to talk to you. Like he got to talk to you. So I go out there. It's a white dude. He got on like a wife beater, and he looked like he was hot. But I'll get closer. I could tell he wasn't high. He actually had tears in his eye, which is normal at my shows for people because we get, when you laugh, it's emotional. And then if I say anything deep, like you're probably going to start. Anyway, it's a good show. So I'm talking to this dude. I come out there and I'm talking to him like, hey, what's up? And he steps away from the security team. He gestures away. So I step away with him. We take a few steps. He said, man, it's just so hard out here, man. I came to this comedy show, man, because I wanted to laugh and just forget about all of this pain and this hurt that I'm feeling right now, man. I don't know what to do, man, but I just came to laugh and forget about things. This is what he's telling me, and I'm listening to him. And then he says, but then you started saying the stuff you said, and I was just expecting jokes, and you said what you said, and I know what I got to do. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. What are you going to do, bro? And he explains to me, he explains to me that he is a fugitive of the law, wanted in other states. And he was just coming to the comedy show to get away from all this pressure. And then when I said what I said, he realized, and he asked me if I would help him turn himself into the authorities. So we called the police. The security guards had a squad car come around. We hug out, pray with the dude. He gets in the back of the car and drives off like the end of a movie or something and goes to prison. Now listen, had I only been doing jokes instead of listening between the gaps, there's no telling where he would be right now. There's no telling how that story would end. But I'm listening between the gaps. Again, everybody listening right now, there's gaps in your life. What question are you asking in between the gaps? It'll change your life and some other people's lives as well. And that's just one of the, man, we got some really cool stories. There was one story where I brought a lady up on stage. I felt like this lady had something to say. I never bring people on stage with me. I just don't. But listening between the gaps, I clearly felt like I was supposed to bring her up on stage. And I get her up on stage, and I didn't know, but she was deaf. Like, what in the world is going to happen now?
Yeah.
You got to get the book to find out. So I'm just going it's really pretty cool what went down, man. So
yeah, and your style of comedy, it's so, it's so unique that you have the clean comedy and the Christian angle, and you don't see too many comedians that are able to pull off clean comedy, or you don't see many that even attempt, really. I mean, Gaffigan does it pretty good, and
he's hilarious.
You do it really well. And so, do you think clean comedy is like a lot harder to do than your traditional, more raunchy comedy? Yeah,
I don't know if it's necessarily hard. It's just what I've always done. One of the best compliments I got early in my career, I was performing at the Comedy Store on the Sunset Strip, Los Angeles, and I had never met Chris Rock before, and he came to he came to do a set that night, and I went on before him. And then he went on, and then afterwards he walks up to me. We start talking, and he complimented my set. He was like, "Man, that was really funny." And we're talking for maybe like 10 minutes or so, and then he gets this look on his face, and he's like, "Wait a second, you didn't curse, did you?" Like, so he went on and gave me all these compliments, and then had the revelation that I didn't do any curse. So that was a big compliment, because he was saying, without saying it, that my comedy was just as strong as all the other guys who went up without the language that was necessary. So again, and all of that stems from me really wanting my children and other people's children to be able to enjoy some laughter too, because laughter brings people together. So I want to bring families together. Yeah.
And, do you notice anything different between those kind of comedy club crowds versus like the Christian audiences that you play to?
I don't really pay a lot of attention to the audiences, and that may sound a little rude, but what I'm really focusing on the most is I'm listening in between the gaps while I'm on stage. Yeah. So there's maybe something, otherwise I'll show up with my agenda, and I really don't want to do that. I just want to show up in a way that will, where I can best give my audience what they need. And I think in general, if anybody even listening right now, if you just try to show up to deliver what your audience needs, even if you're a single mom of one kid, just show up with what your audience needs, with the attitude of how can I serve. Like, being a Christian is really like playing tennis. It's not going to You're not going to be good at it if you can't serve. And it always starts with love.
And and the reason we're here, funny.
Dude, that was awesome. I gave it an awesome tennis analogy. You just blew right by it. That was doggone amazing. Life is like playing tennis. You're not going to be good at it if you don't serve, and it starts with love.
Yeah.
It's spelled different, though.
Pretty good, yeah.
Oh, now you're going to soak on it. You soak on it that time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Let me just think about this for a second. Yeah.
You should slow down and think. You did? You just got married?
Yeah, I just got married.
Oh, cool. So right now it's really, how long have you been married?
About 4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yeah.
Yeah. What can you teach us about marriage so far?
It's all good in the beginning. That's what I know so far. So I don't know what's coming next.
Exactly.
But
that's why you didn't pay attention to that whole love part. You was like, man, things is awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So here's what I suggest to people who always get married for the first time. My wife is amazing too, by the way. So is that do not have a debt to debtor relationship. What I mean is if you do something nice for your wife, just do it because you want to do it, not because you're expecting anything in return. Because if I gave you, like right now, if I gave you $1,000, how would you feel about it?
Pretty good.
Exactly. Yeah. But what if I owed you $1,000 and then I gave it to you?
Yeah, not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So anytime you do something for her, just do it just to do it versus she owes you something. I'm telling you, that changes so much. It changes everything. Yeah. Now, every time you do something, she's blessed, and every time, it's just a win-win every time as opposed to you owe somebody something. It just gets really...
It's like, love your wife like Christ loved the church, just sacrifice for her and...
Oh, you're going to sacrifice. That's going to come naturally, bro. You're 4 weeks in. You don't even know about the sacrifice.
I know. I've sacrificed a little bit so far, but yeah.
Yeah, these 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. You've done a lot in these 4 weeks. That's great. Cool.
But, digging more into that, that wisdom and life experience that you have that you're gracious enough to share with me. Funny How Life Works, your book. So
the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
Tell us about that and just, what you hope the book accomplishes.
Oh, I want to get a lot of money from it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole goal behind the book.
Yeah.
No. So I wrote this book because even like when I did the Tonight Show, the host was like, there was a joke that I did on the Tonight Show that I mentioned. I told a story about the book. It's a joke about me jogging down the street and a white lady comes out in front of me and we're jogging in the same direction. She looked back. She started jogging faster. So I look back too. I'm like, what is back there? What's chasing us? Anyway, so I did this joke on the Tonight Show and they called it a classic. They loved the joke. But then, but nobody knew the story behind the joke and where it really came from.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share that. So what I did was I took all the stories from my life, I put them on a table, and I prayed. I was like, okay, God, this is basically me listening between the gaps. What do you want me to share with the people? So I took the stories that I felt like I was supposed to share. One of them particularly, chapter 19, I did not want to share that story. I just didn't because nobody's going to believe it. But it's absolutely what happened. But nobody's going to believe it. I already know. Like we're looking at reviews on Amazon. Nobody mentioned that story particularly yet. But there's no way you could believe it. But I'm telling you guys, it's completely true. Chapter 19. So I laid them out. So it's called Funny How Life Works. And what we wanted to do is we wanted people to laugh. Because when you laugh, your heart is open. And if the heart is open, we want to make a deposit that can make a change. Yeah. So we wanted people to laugh, but then there's some application in there as well because most of the time, like Super Bowl commercials are always funny because they know you're going to retain the information because you laughed with it. Well, the information that we have, because the God gave it to us, is a little more important than some Doritos or some Bud Light. Yeah. So I just felt like that's why we should write this book. And then I'm super excited about the response. Like people are doing the book, like they're reading this thing and they're like, and the feedback is phenomenal, and they don't even know what they're getting. I had a lady contact me. There's a move in chapter, I think, 14. There's something that I say where I write the story in such a way that it causes a person to look at themselves, even though they don't know they're looking at themselves. Right. I know it sounds crazy, but comedy will allow you to do that. And then there's a story in there about going to. So I lived in New York City, and my address was 1997 Lumina Drive. Yeah. Because I drove a 1997 Lumina. Yeah. So I'm living in my car in New York City. I was homeless for like 3 months in New York. And there's a story in there about what I learned while I was homeless, rationalizing or trying to subdivide a meatball sandwich every day. And then for breakfast, I would have sleep. That's what I would have for breakfast.
Yeah.
I normally get up at 6, but I wouldn't get up to 11 just so I could eat. But how God absolutely used that time, and now the fact that people are reading these stories and laughing is so cool. There's another story in there called The Funny Thing About Having a Gun to Your Head, which is a story about some police officer coming to my apartment putting a gun in my head. It is an awesome story. When I say it's awesome, it is so doggone awesome and refreshing and really cool. I know it doesn't sound like it should be. Wait a minute, you had a gun in your head. He didn't put a gun in my head. He put the hammer back and put the gun in my head. Yeah. And it was pretty doggone traumatic, but the way God uses that thing at the end, oh my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, that's I read through the book, and that's pretty much my favorite chapter.
Yeah, that thing right there is
really
like,
touched
whoa.
me. Yeah,
it's pretty cool, man. You guys got to get the book, and the proceeds, because so much stuff is going on in the world. The proceeds from the book is going to a black family in America. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. Help out.
Yeah,
that's how you can do it. And I think that's about how much time we have left for today.
We gotta say the website.
So if people want to get the book,
there it is. funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. It's almost a song.
Yeah.
You gotta sing it with me, Michael. 2 Michaels. funnyhowlifeworksbook.com.
funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. That's pretty good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. One of us had great rhythm when we did it. It was you.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, because you just got married. You were
Plot
excited
twist.
to get home.
Yes.
Is that why you keep looking at your watch that you don't even have? You're like, ooh, I can't wait to get home. 4 weeks trying to break a record.
And then, and if people want to follow you, where can they go to follow you?
Oh, wherever you see me, just if I'm walking down the street, just get behind me.
Just get behind you.
So I'm Michael Jr. Comedy on all platforms. Michael Jr. Comedy. Oh, by the way, if you go to funnyhowlifeworksbook.com, you get a signed copy. You can get it on Amazon too. It blew up as #1 on Amazon, but you can get a signed copy if you go to Funny How Life Works. Wait, what is it called?
funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. funnyhowlifeworksbook.com. That's pretty good.
That is hilarious. Dude, you're pretty dope, man. For real, man.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
That's dope.
Thanks, man.
Cool. Your wife thinks so too, right?
So far.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So far. That's one of those things you get in Israel.
Yeah.
You get those in Israel.
Yeah.
So fars. Yeah. You better leave that alone.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. Well done.
Right.
Go ahead and do your closing remarks.
Oh, yeah. Now we got to do our closing, our little maintenance stuff. So, thanks for joining us, WJ Live. We're going to be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Go check us out on YouTube. And if you do, at www.youtube.com/WJ Live.
Your wife's calling.
My wife's calling. Oh, no.
Oh, no. He got scared. It's already happening. Wait, what did I do? What did I do? That's hilarious.
But be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so you can be notified. There's subscribe. Hit that bell so you can be notified when new videos come out. For audio listeners, you can catch us out wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all those great places.
I got a podcast too I didn't mention.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
It's called Funny How Life Works.
Oh, that I've heard that.
Yeah, I got a podcast
before,
named after the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, Funny How Life Works.
Well, make sure to check that out too. And
you should have turned my mic off. You didn't think this through at all.
No,
when
I
you doing your big
didn't.
closing remark. This mic should have been off.
We know now for next
time.
As
much marketing as I can. I got a bicycle I'm selling too on Craigslist.
Yeah. All right, so check out the website. Check out the bicycle he's got on Craigslist. Make sure to give him some good offers on that. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. And hey, thank you for joining us.
Dude, you're awesome, man.
Thanks.
Great interview, man. You got skills, like for real, man.
And so bye-bye now.
Deuces.
Welcome back to WJ Live. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and I'm joined today by two very special guests. We have...
you think I'm special? Thank you.
I think you're very special.
I appreciate that.
And from my friend, Andrew J. Shasha, reporter for the Western Journal, who has graced us many times in the past. Welcome back, Andrew. We've already done 50 episodes, 2 more, and we'll be equal to my age. I am flanked by 2 of our, that's a word I don't get to use very often.
It's true.
Flanked. And I'm joined today by assignment editor Joey Chester, as well as crack reporter Michael Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Not joining us today, my white polo, because apparently that memo doesn't go to everybody. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and this is Not Smoldering. I'm joined today by, what are you, distribution manager, Brian Chai, right? Manager of distribution operations.
The distributor of things.
Distributor, right. And with that, we must say sayonara. We said adieu on Friday. We said farewell on Monday. And today we're saying sayonara.
Oh, friend.
There's no particular reason why I picked that one, Brian. It's just coincidence. We'll be here to bring you the truth every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 p.m.